Hey, I'm Michael Konomos, and today I'm going to be talking about the Tembra Dual All Pass Filter. It's a new module that I just got, and I'm pretty excited to share a little bit of what I found about the module, how I've taken to using it, do some exploring of some different patches. I'm going to talk a little bit about how I understand it works. I am not an expert neither at this module or at Modular in general. I am not a synth YouTuber. I'm just a guy who has a module that I want to tell you about today. So my understanding of the dual pass filter is that it is a multi-mode filter. It has all pass at its core, and we're going to talk about what is all pass, what does that mean? It's a filter. It's a dual filter. That's what attracted me to it in the first place is I saw dual filter, and that's exciting because I didn't have one, and so it'd be nice to have two filters. And it is that. I think it's also something of maybe a utility and potentially even maybe an effect. It has Vactrals in it, which is kind of fun. It has a lot of heart and character and personality and originality packed into this module. I don't think that there is another module out there that's exactly like this. It has some overlap with modules that you might be familiar with or you might already have, but I really think that this is unique. I think it's also worth mentioning that Tembra, I understand them to be a relatively new modular company. I think they're based in Kiev, Ukraine. We all know what's going on in Ukraine right now. It's a war zone. They literally experience attacks weekly. I cannot even imagine living there right now. I can't imagine living through a war for years, having those years taken away, having your daily life affected, being afraid of what's going to happen, wondering about your future. And Tembra is making a future for themselves amidst all of this. They're choosing creativity, artistry, and they're not just trying to survive, but they're really trying to create something special here. And their modules really have so much personality and character and just creativity in them. I think it's so interesting. It's like so many modules I've seen from them. It's just like, wow, this is a new take. This is something fresh. And so I think that's really cool. I think that they're worth checking out. I think they're worth supporting if you look around you and see the dark world that we're in and you wonder, like, what can I do about all of this? You know, just one person. I mean, one thing we can do is support companies like this who are, you know, finding a way forward in the darkness and are trying to make the world a better place and are in a tough situation themselves. So I'm happy to support Tembra for that reason. I'm not sponsored. I paid for this module, built it as a DIY kit. And so I'm not, you know, I did contact them to answer some questions, but I haven't been instructed like what to say or anything like that at all. So this is really just me speaking my point of view about this. And a final note is that I calibrated this module by myself, and I'm not entirely sure that I did that correctly. You might get different results from calibrating it more correctly potentially. So in the comments, if you want to speak up because you have this module and maybe mine doesn't sound quite right or something like that, please do. I'm always learning, and so I think I did the best that I could on that aspect of it. It's a little bit of a balance to get it calibrated correctly, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. I think it's pretty good though, and I like the way it turned out, but I just want to mention that. So apologies to Tembra if I didn't do it quite correctly. I think I did, but yeah, so just keep that in mind. And with that, let's get started. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to have a listen to this filter, the dual all pass filter from Tembra, and I am going to patch a saw wave from the Dreadbox Hysteria into the input of the dual pass filter, and I am going to send that out And we're just going to drone it into the VCA here. Okay, so we're droning a saw wave out of the hysteria. We're in low pass mode, and I've got the cutoff fully open. I believe that this filter is a Steiner-Parker architecture filter. Apparently that's in the Mini Brute and some other synths. I think it's 12 decibels per octave, like the Steiner-Parker is. Tembra could correct me if I'm wrong on that. So this is what it sounds like when we reduce the cutoff. Filter sweep. A little resonance in there. Okay. Now we're going to try and filter a little white noise. I've heard it said that you can really tell what a filter sounds like when you filter white noise. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're actually going to take the same saw wave that we got from the hysteria here. And I'm actually going to patch it into the DFAM up here. And there's actually a little trick that you can do where you patch the VCA CV into the trigger or vice versa. It's kind of weird, they're both inputs. But it actually gives you a drone. Alright, so now we're hearing a filter from the DFAM. So this is just Moog ladder style filter with that same saw wave. Now with some resonance. So that's what it sounds like if you want to compare the two. All right, now I'm just giving you the filters I've got in my case here. So now we've got a steady state gate, which is low pass gate, but it also has a filter here. So right now it's in 2-pole. That's resonance there. One pole. All right. Also got Polyvox filter. This is not the one from Tembra, which I'm actually really looking forward to getting. You can hear how aggressive this is even without resonance. All right. Now we're going to return to Tembra. That's how it sounds. Okay, you're probably tired of hearing a drone. I know I am, so let's get some kind of sequence going here. Okay, so I have a dual envelope that I also built from Tembra that we're going to be using today to serve as the envelope, and we are going to give it a gate. And we're going to start that. Okay, so we've got a sequence going here, just something simple to demonstrate. And we're going to try to go through these different modes here. So if you look here, we have this switch in each channel. So this is one channel here, the first channel that we're going to talk about. You know, first filter, second filter, and then we've got some controls that function on both here in the center. So if we're looking at the first channel, right now we're going into input 2. So input 2 is not attenuated, not affected in any sort of way. It's just your input going in. And that's what we're going to use to start off with. Later on, we'll talk about input 1 and how that's different. So right now, low pass mode. Let's try band pass. So band pass is very much affected by both the note that you're playing, kind of where that shows up, as well as where the cutoff knob is. So if I play a higher note, the cutoff knob, I almost think about bandpass almost like a spotlight sort of on just part of the spectrum of sound. And it's, you can kind of sweep through and focus on the lower, the higher parts of that spectrum. So if we have more of a bass sound coming in there, you're going to find that more in that bandpass mode. And you're sort of cutting out, I think, above and below that point where you put the cutoff knob. So that's band pass. Probably familiar with that already. High pass. So you'll hear it really well again if we're like, you know, we have like a higher pitch, you're going to hear that pretty well on high pass, even all the way up here. And as we sweep downward, more of the lower frequencies start coming in. So we're cutting off low frequencies in high pass mode. And then here's where things get a little bit different. So all pass mode, we're going to talk more about this later. You might not hear a very big difference right now. So you might see a little bit of a difference in the waveform if you're looking at that, but you might not actually hear a major difference in how it sounds. You will notice that when I sweep this cutoff knob though, it's not cutting off any frequencies because they're all passing through. As I understand it, what all pass does is it changes the phase of the waveform. And so we'll talk more about what that can do, both within a single channel and then with both channels later. But that's all pass. Sounds a little bit different. Your ears, if they're well trained, you might be thinking in terms of like, that sounds a little bit like maybe some kind of phaser effect or something is happening there as he's sweeping it. And so yes, I think there is a relationship there, but we'll get more into that in a minute. So those are the different channels. We're going to go back to low pass mode here. And let's talk about resonance. So right now we don't have the resonance CV patch, so it's just unaffected, and we have the resonance turned all the way down. Now, I might show this later at some point, but there is a trimmer. It's a little blue trimmer that's on the each side of the module if you take it out of the case, which I'm not going to do right now. But it has the trimmer for the resonance, and you can, if you built this, then you already have had to do this, but if for some reason it came pre-assembled to you, you might want or need to trim the resonance to increase or decrease the strength of it and sort of where it appears in the sweep. So you'll hear with mine, it slowly kicks in here. And then right around 3 o'clock, maybe 4 o'clock, it really starts self-oscillating. And that's a pretty aggressive sound. That's kind of fun. All right, I'm going to increase the tempo here. Let's change the sequence just a little bit so we don't get too bored. Does it acid? I don't know. Maybe. It does get pretty aggressive and growly. That's kind of cool. I don't know about acid. I'm not into that. You tell me. Maybe I'm not even doing that right. That's not something I really do a lot, but just wanted to get into that a little bit. Can you play the filter as a sine wave? Can we tune it into there? Yeah, maybe a little bit. Now, using resonance, I learned this trick from Heinbach is in a bandpass mode. You can kind of ping the filter. So instead of having our input be this oscillator here, I'm actually going to give it a pulse wave. There we go. Can you hear that? I love that sound. So you're sort of You can also put it in the CV here. I don't know what the difference is there, but I kind of like it on the input, obviously. You can tell that I don't always know what I'm doing. Like I said, not an expert, just a guy playing modular. Okay, so, but pinging filters is fun. Apparently the Vactrals that are in here, there's 2 of them I remember soldering in, and those are these like LED lights that I guess the sort of decay of the light fading as it turns off affects the timing, in this case, of the resonance. I guess it's attached to the resonance in some way. I'm guessing maybe it's somehow involved in the feedback loop that creates resonance, I think. So now you can modulate resonance, and so let's do that a little bit while we're pinging the filter in bandpass mode. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab, I guess, an LFO here, maybe from, actually, you know what? Let's use the exhale. So you all can hear that. So this is another module from Tembra, and I'm going to patch that into the Utopia so that I can sort of attenuate that a little bit, because we don't have a VCA in the resonance here. So we're going to attenuate that a little bit as it comes into the resonance so we can make it a little bit more subtle. So you can hear it kind of lightly affecting the resonance. It kind of fades in and out a little bit in time with the LFO there. Or I'm sorry, with the exhales, attack and release, I should say. It's not really an LFO. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And then if we kick it into low pass mode here, even without an input, we are hearing a little something. That's kind of fun. Now you can really hear the resonance being affected in low pass mode on top of an oscillator. So we can reduce the effect of that a little bit. That's pretty nice there. What I like about the exhale, side note, is the exhale here has these almost like classic Buchla style attack and release waves, almost like you can think of it like a triangle shaped waveform that you can kind of move more into a saw shape in either direction. And there's a lot of like different ways that you can patch it and self patch it. That's pretty cool. So it's a really great modulation source that feels, I like the name of it because it kind of implies breathing, and it sort of has that kind of I don't know, that quality to its movement, to that almost human quality to it that I like a lot. So that's resonance. Now let's talk a little bit about CV1 and 2. We're going to use the exhale on CV1, and notice how when I plugged it in, nothing happened. And the reason why is because we have this, which attenuates what you're doing with CV. And that's really nice. So you can just get like a little bit of an effect, and you don't have to have like a VCA plugged into that. So we're just modulating this cutoff knob here. It's an invisible hand that's turning that cutoff knob. CV2 is doing the same thing with the cutoff knob, but we're not attenuating it at all. It's just the full strength of the exhale coming through and moving that knob all the way. So that's CV2. I like CV1, gives us some control. Can we patch both? Let's find out. Oh yeah. Now that's pretty cool. So you can actually have two sources of CV affecting that cutoff knob and mixing, and since these have different timings, you're hearing that both of those modulation sources coming in and out in different ways. So that's really cool. Never done that before. I just did that spontaneously right now, and I like that a lot. We're definitely going to be revisiting that. Okay. Now, let's change the waveform here. Are we tired of listening to us all? There's a sine wave for you. Square wave. Alright, we probably better go back to sol for a minute because I'm going to do a comparison with what we had earlier just for a second. So here in this input one, we've got a little potentiometer here. I don't know if you can see it on the camera or not, but I accidentally touched my soldering iron to this guy at some point in the process, and that was a terrible thing. So there's like a little edge that's melted there. Sigh. Maybe I'll replace that someday, I don't know. My fault. Okay, here we go. So we're turning this potentiometer, and we can actually get into some clipping here. And so you can really hear it when it's coming all the way through. Let's change the tempo again here. So you can attenuate your sound source itself here. And you can boost it until it clips a little. Squaring off those waves. I bet we'll hear it pretty well with a sine wave too. So the softer sound of the sine wave, and then boost it. It's just a little sharper there. Alright, so that is considering everything within one channel. Everything on channel 2 is going to work the same. So now we're going to move into talking about what's in the middle here. Okay, so if we're going to talk about what's happening in the middle, I want to have something happening on both sides here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the waveform that's coming out of the hysteria here, and we are going to put it in input 1 of the second channel. Both of them are still in low pass mode. I'm going to stop doing any CV for right now. We're going to take the output of this filter and now we have, let's go ahead and give a separate envelope to a separate gate. There we go. Okay. All right, so Waveforms should be pretty identical right now. And we've got envelopes that are fairly identical here too. So we should be kind of getting the same sound. I've got filter 1 patched into the left side, the audio, filter 2 patched into the right side. So we've got, and I should say too, I've panned them such that they mix a little bit in the middle, because I think realistically we'll want that when we explore the all pass. We'll want a little bit of mixing and not just having them hard pan to either ear. So that's what we're going to do here. Okay, so let's talk about what's going on in the middle here. So first of all, it should be noted that what's happening in channel 1 is normaled to go out on channel 2 unless you have something patched in the out here. I think a good way to demonstrate this would actually be to take, let's make that a saw wave coming out of hysteria into our channel 2, and we're going to do a sine wave now. You can still hear that sine wave even though I've unpatched the first channel, so it's normal, it's coming through there. And you can operate these filters independently so that now you can only hear the sine wave that's coming through the first channel. That's pretty cool. We're going to send a saw into both right now. Change the sequence again. Are we getting fatigued? Let's try something else. Okay. Now, if we're going to consider what's going on with this central cutoff knob here, let's go ahead and change the waveform. This time I'll patch out of the DFAM's oscillator 1. Okay, so probably the best way to understand what's happening here in the middle, first of all, is if we turn it all the way down here, cutoff knobs are in the middle on both sides here, it will filter all the frequencies out because we're in low pass mode. So all of them are gone. We open it up halfway. It seems like it's halfway up here. It's all the way up. I'm not really sure why it's red here versus green here. I don't know if that's how it's supposed to be or not. In any case, I've noticed if you have the cutoff knobs all the way up here and you reduce down, filter down to here, it doesn't filter everything. And maybe that's expected behavior. I'm guessing so, maybe because of the invert button. So just know that, like, set these at noon if you really want this main cutoff knob to control everything. Okay, so now let's cover the invert here. So right now we're favoring channel 2, the saw wave from the hysteria, when we're inverted this way, and we turn this main knob that way. So we're turning it towards where we want it. Now I bet it'll do the opposite if I push it the other way. Sure enough. So we move this way and we're getting the opposite. We're getting this channel. And in the middle it sounds like that. All right, so that's kind of what the invert is about. The invert seems to have to do with that knob. And now one thing I should mention as well that's kind of interesting is that if you want to, let's do the exhale again. You can send CV into that main knob, so now it's turning that for us. And of course, if you're inverting, you'll get that effect again too on either side. And then you can attenuate this so that it's having less of that CV come through and affect it. That's very cool. You might need that at some point, and we might explore the use of that a little bit maybe later in all pass mode. One thing I want to try here too is if we do band pass mode and we invert, okay. So that is what's going on in the middle here. Okay, let's talk about all pass filtering, or not filtering as it were. So got a new sequence going here. Let's not CV anything right now. We'll turn the resonance down for now. We've got these up at halfway. If we turn it all the way up, we hear it all the way here. We're in low pass mode. We're gonna turn it to all pass. Notice a slight volume drop. I'm told that that's normal. It's to allow for cranking up the resonance here. Yeah, there we go. Let's not do that right now. And we're going to drop this down to a little bit more of a bass sound and a saw waveform. So we are in all pass mode, and if we set both sides to be the same, you might have heard when I move that, we have a little bit of a phasing happening here, and that is what all pass is about. So it's not filtering anything out, it's changing the phase, as I understand it, of the waveform. And let's check out a drone here so we can really we can see that waveform changing. And if we add some resonance in, that's still a saw wave, but it doesn't look like a saw wave, right? And because we've got one pan mostly left, one pan mostly right, with a little bit of mixing in the center, we're getting just some weird sort of phasing. which is very cool. It's a cool kind of weird. All right. So let's try some modulation here. So we'll try a little bit from the Tembra into CV1, which we've got turned all the way up right now. And then we'll try a triangle wave from Black Modulator, Erica Sense module here. So we've got different modulation, different timing coming in. And now you're hearing a little bit more of that kind of phasing sort of sound. What's happening here is we're moving that cutoff knob back and forth with the CV signal coming in. And that's turned all the way up. We can modulate or attenuate it here if we want to. We want to speed that up. We invert it. And then bring in some modulation to the central cutoff knob here. All right, now let's try to put this first channel into low pass. So we're getting like the full wave. Hear it completely. We'll attenuate it down a little bit so we have some more levels. Maybe we're getting fatigued from that particular. We're handling these saw waves differently. On the left side, we're sort of carving off part of it while we still got some CV coming in. And on the right side here, we're phasing it around, So you can really both hear and see a difference in the waves. Alright, so let's take off the CV here. And maybe we'll give it a little bit of CV in the middle. Invert it, so we'll be kind of moving back and forth, I think, between the two. That is a nice sound. So they're still in time with each other, but they're being phased differently. It's so weird. Is a triangle wave. Sine wave. Square. It's really a sound that you just are not going to get just out of regular low pass mode. And this is a great sound, don't get me wrong. Like, I love the sound of just their filter. I think it's really cool. So this is just so wonderfully weird. You just really have like this nice subtle stereo movement if you've got it plugged in the stereo. That's really nice. Yeah, so this is the Tembra dual all pass filter. Pretty cool. Okay, so that is the Tembra dual all pass filter. Now, what do I like about it? So, you know, off the top of my head, it's like I actually love like the knobs and how, you know, prominent they are. They're not like the little tiny ones that, you know, for the most part, they've got knobs that you can perform with on there that are useful and helpful in a performance setting, and but it's still, you know, in a decent form factor. Doesn't take up too much space in your rack. I think an appropriate amount for a dual filter. Like I mentioned before, I feel like this is just a really original module, and I'm excited about that. I think that this is just, it's something fresh and different, but it's also the basics that you need are in there as well that you would want from a filter. I think two channels in particular is super useful, whether you're trying to do something in stereo, whether you're trying to just, filter two different oscillators. So I think it can be great for a lot of different purposes. I think if there's any downsides to it as a DIY kit, I would say it's like an intermediate build. And so it was challenging at certain points. I think the calibration I found particularly challenging. I've just never calibrated a filter before. And so that was a new experience for me. I wouldn't say it's like their fault or anything. It's just, I hadn't done that. And so, I think that, that part was difficult. There's a couple spots in the, building and the soldering where, there's some spots that are pretty tight and you gotta be careful. So, but I think in general it's great. I was a little confused on the central like 1 and 2 cutoff knob at first, and I think it took me some time to sort of wrap my brain around like what exactly that does with the invert functions and whatnot. That's not necessarily a downside, but it's just a learning curve, I think, to be aware of, at least for me. I think I get it now. And, I guess when I got this, I was just kind of expecting a dual filter. I think I didn't even like register the all pass. I didn't even really know what that meant. And so I just bought this to be a dual filter. And then it turns out that it's got a lot more in there. So that's pretty cool. I like that aspect of it. I got something a little bit fresh and original and interesting. Who's this for? I think, if you want just an affordable dual filter in general, I think this is a good option. If you want to filter, if you've already got several other filters, but you want something that has like a little bit of a different sound to it, then, maybe a Moog filter or, whatever you might have, SEM or something. I mean, this is a different, sound to it, a different character. And so maybe that's for you. If you just like DIY kits and this is an affordable one, it's good to build. It feels good to have built something yourself. Or if you want to do something weird with some of the all pass explorations you might do, or some of the band pass stuff on here too, I think maybe this is a good module for you as well. And of course, if you want to support a company that's doing cool things, I think that's another good reason to get it. So yeah, I think that's my take on this module. I'm looking forward to seeing what Tembra does next. I don't know. I feel like they're really kind of up and coming in the modular world, and they've put out a lot of like really interesting modules in rapid succession. And so I'm really watching to see what they're going to be doing. I'm kind of excited about what's happening there. So thanks for watching and happy patching.